So this weekend, we have an increase in seismic activity, and I want to quickly take you through why. I've been giving warnings like this on Facebook for a long time. I've been studying seismology for a long time. There's always going to be one or two commenters that want to say, oh my God, you don't know what you're talking about. None of these factors play into earthquakes. We can't forecast earthquakes anyway. Well, you may have had your head in the sand for about 15 years, but the era of not being able to forecast earthquakes has almost fully drawn to a complete and utter close. Uh, Michael Janet, also goes by the name of Dutch Sense on YouTube, has a forecasting accuracy beyond 75%, way beyond chance. He's doing an absolutely stellar job. I just wish that he would pay attention to some of the other factors that play into seismic risk on the Earth. I long ago predicted that the last 7 months would be an increase, a massive increase in seismic activity. I was completely correct there. We've all been seeing that, or hopefully you have, if you pay attention to those kinds of things, and maybe you don't, and that's fine. But the position of the planets, we had a planetary clustering, and every time we have a planetary clustering, historically, we have seen that seismic activity massively increases. So it was a rather easy prediction. This weekend, we also have things occurring that massively increase seismic risk. On Sunday night, we have this eclipse. We have an epigee syzygy. We have the alignment of the sun and the moon and the earth. And we also have the moon at its closest point to the earth. So it appears, for most people, they can tell with their eyes that the moon looks a lot bigger tonight. Yes. So these things alter the gravitational forces that are being exerted on our planet. Whenever we have a change in the gravitational force, whether it's an increase or a decrease, it increases seismic risk, always, without exception. Why? Well, it's very simple. If you have this planet and you have these plates that are floating around on top, and you have all these gravitational forces that are being exerted on the Earth, the average, well, we get used to that. But once we start to see a lessening, so we see a relaxation of gravitational pull on the Earth, or we see something like the sun and the moon and the Earth in syzygy in a line that increases the gravitational pull on the Earth, either of those things outside of the norm increase seismic activity. That's what we're looking at this weekend. But it's not just this. And if it was just that, I wouldn't have created this podcast to warn you. A few hours ago, just a few hours ago, we had a coronal hole open up on the middle left side of the sun. That will become an Earth-facing coronal hole on Sunday afternoon or thereabouts. This is going to change the magnetic relationship between the sun and the Earth. It usually does. So we have satellites that track all of this data. You can go to the Suspicious Observers YouTube channel and get a daily briefing on what those things are doing. It's a space weather report. It's very, very good. So this Sunday, we're going to have the moon in epigee, which means it's, the moon in perigee, so it's going to be closest to the Earth. We're going to have the three bodies in syzygy in a line, and then we're going to have an Earth-facing coronal hole altering the magnetic relationship with the Earth. This radically increases seismic risk. It does not mean we are going to have an earthquake. I am not predicting an earthquake on Sunday or thereabouts. But what I am saying is that the risk of an earthquake is radically increased because of the relationship between the three bodies and then because of this Earth-facing coronal hole. So make sure you have a plan. Make sure that you, if you live in a coastal region of the United States, specifically on the west coast of the United States, specifically southern California, or north of Portland, all the way up into British Columbia, Canada. Make sure you have a plan. Make sure you know how to get to high ground. If we have the large earthquakes that we are waiting upon, especially in the Pacific Northwest, we are waiting for the Cascadia subduction zone to trip. When those things happen, the majority of people will not die in the earthquake. They will die in the tsunami that will follow. You will, if you're on ground and you see that thing coming toward you, it is too late. So have a plan. And to all of those that are always going to chime in and say, oh, you're just fear-mongering, man, shit happens. Be prepared. There is nothing to lose in being a wise person and having a plan. Make sure you've got some kind of a bug-out bag where you've got a few days of food, some protein bars, some bottles of water, things like that, a change of underwear, socks, etc. And make sure you have that accessible. I don't live here on the west coast of the United States, but I am here right now. I'm in Orange right now, and I need to evaluate whether I actually do want to be here because I am mobile. I can move. Whether I want to be here on Sunday afternoon. I was planning to attend the Blexit rally in Los Angeles this Sunday afternoon, right at the peak time, right at the highest point of earthquake risk, of seismic risk. So I will need to evaluate that. This certainly is a very interesting occurrence that we're about to go through this weekend. The probability is that nothing will happen. That's usually always the probability. But on the off chance that something does happen, it's probably going to be a fairly decent-sized event, right? So just have a plan. I recommend that you listen to Dutch Sense on YouTube, DUTCHSINCE, Dutch Sense on YouTube. Depending on where you're listening to this, if there is a comment section, because this is available in many different places, this podcast, you might want to put a link to that below for me. That'll be great. Help other people get there. Otherwise, just go to YouTube and search for Dutch Sense, one word, and he will undoubtedly be talking. Will he be? Actually, he may not be, because Dutch Sense usually ignores events that are occurring in our solar system. In fact, he completely ignored the planetary clustering that led to the last 7 months of increased seismic activity. I've tried to contact him many times, but I never get any reply. Anyway, so just have a plan, okay? I'll leave it at that. Earthquakes are real. They hurt. People get hurt. People die. It's always best to have a plan. Always best to be prepared. Have an awesome weekend.